Alexander sees nothing. The girl is too far away to hold a conversation with Alexander.
Are you out here again? Have you finished the chores I gave you?
Yes, stepmother. The house and the stables are clean.
Then start polishing the silverware! Do I have to tell you everything?
Yes, stepmother. Right away.
There is no reply. The entrance to the house is a time-worn wooden door. The door is
Oh, it's you. Come on in. How goes it, Alexander?
What else can you tell me about the land?
Some say that the land of the Green Isles is near the edge of the world, and that the deadly currents are a result of a magnetism that sucks life from this world to the next. Of course, that's just silly talk.
What else can you tell me about the land?
Let's see. The Isle of Wonder's a lovely spot. A bit crazy, mind you. Gotta have a good sense of humor to enjoy a tour there.
Well, thanks again for your hospitality.
You're always welcome, Alexander. Come back anytime.
Alexander.
Now, what can I do for you?
How fare you, merchant?
Business could be better. Too many people are losing interest in reading these days. It is a sign of the time.
A large round pot is one of the pottery pieces on display outside the shops. The village Alexander sorts through the odds and ends that the pawn shop owner dumped into the pot. Magic exploding gum wrappers, a shattered crystal ball, a cracked wand, a fake thumb. Near the bottom, Alexander finds a little glass bottle labeled ink. It appears to be empty, but Alexander decides to take it anyway. You never know when a small bottle will come in handy. Alexander's carrying a little ink bottle. It appears to be empty. A nightingale perches on a high branch of the tree. She sings the most beautiful song Alexander has ever heard. Alexander The The path is well used enough already and doesn't need any adjustments from Alexander. Alexander winds the mechanical nightingale and places it on the ground. The mechanical nightingale sings a sweet, tinny tune. The real nightingale in the tree cocks her head and listens intently. The nightingale flies to a lower branch and looks at Alexander curiously, as if she were deciding that this human might not be so bad. Although the nightingale seems interested in Alexander, she would never allow him close enough to grab her. The nightingale sings her crystalline song in the boughs of the old tree. The nightingale looks at Alexander curiously, as though waiting for something. Alexander winds the mechanical nightingale. It plays its pleasant tinny tune. The living nightingale in the tree listens to the tune curiously. Alexander pulls out his magic map. Alexander feels a strange pulling sensation. Alexander picks the flower and is startled by its hideously strong skunk-like odor. For a moment he can smell nothing else. Alexander takes the feather. There appears to be something etched into the face of the cliff. Alexander decides to get closer. Nothing happens. There appears to be... Nothing happens. Jagged boulders surround the small cove of this rocky island. The ocean appears calm, but there's a dimpling pattern to the surface which indicates a strong undertow. There appears to be something etched into the face of the cliff. Alexander decides to get closer. There appears to be no way past the cliffs. Though roughly hewn, the cliffs do not provide regular handholds for climbing, and they seem otherwise impenetrable. The ocean is not as calm as it appears. Underwater currents tug at Alexander's legs. The underwater tow is amazingly strong here. It pulls ferociously at Alexander's legs. Before Alexander can retreat, the currents grab his legs. The shifting sand vanishes from beneath his feet. Against his best efforts, he is dragged out to sea. The currents around the island pull Alexander under. As Alexander struggles to the surface for the third and last time, he finds himself wishing he'd paid more attention to the warning signs of an undertow.
Tickets. Oh. Next.
Nothing like getting swept off your feet. Alexander feels his pockets carefully to make sure he hasn't lost anything. Alexander pulls out his magic map. Alexander feels a strange pulling sensation. Alexander doesn't want to taste the salty seawater. A string of letters floats in the water. The letters spell out, "Where are you going?" Alexander's heard of alphabet soup, but this is ridiculous. The sentence Alexander picks up the object floating in the water. It appears to be a string of letters. They say, "Where are you going?" Alexander decides to keep the odd sentence, even though it is incomplete. One of the oysters is sitting up in bed and doesn't look very happy. He seems to be the only one who can't sleep. In the oyster's mouth, Alexander can see a glint of white.
Why aren't you asleep like the other oysters?
Oh, I'm so weary, but I can't sleep. I have a terrible ache in my mouth.
If you're having trouble sleeping, perhaps you'd like me to read to you.
Hey, that would be great.
Two dulcimers raised to the degree of 40 half-dulcimers, divided into equal parts by the third of a cackle of grouse geese, put over the result of 10 fine mackles, albeit small fine mackles, stretched over the total of 53 1/8 bottles of wild beast lard.
Alexander sees nothing of interest on that part of the oyster.
Yields a gilded minnow of precise measurements, 2,069 centidrills by 3,023 6/7 puns, not punts, as might be expected. This is not to say, however, in any sense whatsoever, that deviations in mean temperature of 5 or 6 dregs or so.
Alexander makes a grab for the pearl.
Hey! You fixed my mouth! It feels great!
Ah, the little oyster drifts into peaceful slumber with the rest of his oyster friends. There's nothing to do there. To the north, the island is dense with vegetation. Alexander hears someone coming.
"5 fierce guards of the isle we be. Watch for a foreign man," said he, "with ears and nose, tongue, hands, and eyes. Its nature cannot be disguised. If man it be, then man it dies. Old Tom Troll, smell your smell. Do that which you do so well."
Alexander holds the flower of stench out to the gnome with the jumbo nose.
Tom Troll I am, that's all I'll be. My nose knows all on land and sea. A flower of stench has washed ashore. A flower 'tis all, and nothing more. Listen, hark you, Groganor, do your duty as you swore. With your ears, please tell us more.
Alexander winds the tin nightingale and plays it for the gnome with the monumental ears.
A nose is not a way to spy. My ears cannot be told a lie. A nightingale is all there be. No man is near, and so say me. Taste, Grump, that we might know whether friend or whether foe.
Alexander holds the mint out for the gnome with the gigantic mouth.
Grump knows a tasty treat. It matters not what others bleat. No danger is this one so sweet.
Trilly dilly, use your hands. Is it beast or is it man?
Alexander holds the rabbit foot out for the gnome with the huge hands.
Be all you mad? What aileth thee? A bunny can't trill merrily. A hare does not at all taste sweet. A rabbit here is all we greet.
Old Bill Batter, never fatter, vision can resolve this matter. Look you now and end this chatter.
Alexander pours the contents of the empty-looking ink bottle over himself.
By all that's beauteous, fair, and sightly, 4 morons do I sleep with nightly. There's nothing there at all, I say. Enough of this. Let's now away.
Alexander did it! He's fooled the guards!
What do you think you're doing?
I'm sorry. I didn't realize these books had an owner. I'm in need of a rare book.
No owner? All books have owners, my good man. And this book owner, bookworm to you, wouldn't part with one of his books for anything.
Isn't there something I can do for you to pay for the book?
Let's see. Do you have an itinerant clause?
No. No clauses at all, I'm afraid.
As an exception, you always should.
Don't mind oxymoron and diphthong. They're fairly limited grammatical principles, you know. Let's see. A marsh pig that does Texas?
No. I'm afraid not.
A dangling participle?
I'm fresh out.
A purple fiddle whacker?
No, I don't think so. Sorry.
An idiosyncrasy, perhaps?
Afraid not.
Ha! Then what good are you? Do you have anything interesting yet?
A regular abnormality?
Let me see what I have. I have a large pearl.
Please, you'd think I'd take mere oyster stones for my books? Ha!
Alexander sees nothing. Piles of stacked books, looking ready to topple at any moment, have been arranged haphazardly on the sandy ground. Piles of...
Do you have anything interesting yet? A subordinate clause, maybe?
Let me see what I have. Would you take this in exchange for a rare book?
You want to trade that? There are millions of those lying about. No thank you.
There...
Do you have anything interesting yet? A subordinate clause, maybe?
Let me see what I have. Would you take this in exchange for a rare book?
You want to trade that? There are millions of those lying about. No thank you.
Alexander investigates the intricate spider's web in the corner. The spider who lives there is not amused. Alexander feels the tiny pinprick of the spider's bite and the slow burning of her poison.
Tickets up. Next.
Why do you think they call her a... The tail end of this island is a riotous scramble of books, sand, and a spider's web. The tail end of... There's no reason to touch that. Alexander sees nothing of interest there. Alexander investigates the intricate spider's web in the corner. The spider who lives there is not amused. Alexander feels the tiny pinprick of the spider's bite and the slow burning of her poison.
Tickets out. Next.
Why do you think they call her a widow? There's no reason. Alexander investigates the intricate spider's web in the corner. The spider who lives there is not amused. Alexander feels the tiny pinprick of the spider's bite and the slow burning of her poison.
Tickets out. Next.
Why do you think they call her a... Oh no, a black widow spider's web. Alexander feels the tiny pinprick of the spider's...
Tickets. Oh. Next.
Well, walked right in.
Wow. Hiya, gorgeous. Oh, what a luscious-looking hunk of flesh you are.
Thank you, I guess. Who are you?
How charming of you to pretend not to know. I'm Black Widow, of course. The femme fatale of all femme fatales. Know what I mean? You know, I was just thinking it was time I found my 50th, another husband. It would be quite a horror, an honor to have me as a bride. Just look at my beautiful weaving. It's so light, so delicate. You'll never want to leave my little nest.
It is a lovely web, but my heart is elsewhere, I'm afraid.
Oh, drat! The loss is yours. I'm sure you'll change your mind once you consider the advantages.
Hey, don't touch that thread!
Alexander snatches the scrap of parchment, curious to see what's written on it. The wind blows the scrap of paper from Alexander's hand, but he remembers what it said well enough. A mushy swamp lies just off the path. It doesn't look like very good swimming. A cluster of cattails flourishes near the muck of the swamp. Milkweed thrives near the mucky swamp. Small bottles filled with milk grow on it like fruit. A large tree stretches knotted limbs out over the swamp. Part of the tree's trunk is shaped like the face of a dog. Why, it must be a dogwood tree. A stick is stuck in the middle of the swamp. The fertile swamp is dense with moss-covered trees. The fallen log has a good-sized knot or bump. The fallen log has a good-sized knot or bump. The bump on the log does not look particularly interesting to Alexander. Alexander takes a bottle of milk from the milkweed bush. Apparently, the dogwood tree doesn't like Alexander standing that close. Unless Alexander is mistaken, those plants must be baby's tears. Vines of sweet ripening tomatoes climb up little wooden posts. To the right of the path is a little coffee table. A colorful array of snapdragons stand guard to one side of the path. The wallflowers look terribly shy. An elegant padded chair provides a cushy seat from which to enjoy the lively garden. Those grapes look awfully sour. Clinging vines climb the garden wall. A curiously speckled gate marks one end of the garden. There appears to be a hole in the garden wall. Through the hole in the wall, Alexander sees a land that resembles a giant chessboard. Wow, it really is a hole in the wall. Zounds, those wallflowers sure are shy, and the snapdragons are awfully protective of them. Alexander can't even get close to the wallflowers without causing quite a stir. A path leads from the marble steps off into the hills of chessboard land. A noble white chess knight stands at the top of the marble stairs. A red chess knight stands at the top of the marble steps.
Checkmate! Only chess pieces allowed in chessboard land. That's right. Humans aren't allowed in and never will be. Stay out!
I must insist, Your Highness. I shall send the lump of coal to the Vizier and the Princess as a present for their wedding, and that's the end of it.
And I suppose you'll leave me with only this stupid spoiled egg to send, Your Highness. I want to impress the new king and queen of the realm as much as you do. As queen of this island, I have every right to that lump of coal.
who isn't queen of this isle. The lump of coal is in my possession, therefore I shall do as I please with it. Besides, there's nothing wrong with that spoiled egg.
The egg, though delightfully spoiled, is not nearly so valuable as the lump of coal, and you know it. Your Highness always got to carry the singing stone. It's not fair that you get the coal, too.
That doesn't count. The singing stone was stolen by that horrid beast. I should get to keep the coal just because my stone was stolen.
It wasn't your stone. It belonged to the Isle of Wonder treasury. Your Highness always thinks that everything is hers.
Excuse me, my good man, but could you settle an argument for us?
Which of us should get to carry the coal and which the egg? Remember, white is the color of deserving truth and virtue.
Quiet, Your Highness, and let him make up his own mind. I, for one, shall be more proper, and not even mention the fact that red is the color of love.
I'm sorry, Your Majesties. I'm partial to both red and white, but I'm afraid that I don't know how to solve your problem. One of you will just have to be gracious and allow the other the lump of coal.
What a ridiculously stupid idea.
Quite ludicrous.
He was a lot of help, wasn't he?
Oh, yes. Obviously a man of high intelligence. The lump of coal goes much better with my gown anyway. Black and red are imperial colors.
That's the silliest thing I ever heard. Red does not go with anything, being much too self-conscious. White is the perfect accompaniment to any color.
The Red Queen has dropped her scarf on the steps. Alexander picks up the Red Queen's scarf.
Excuse me, what land lies beyond?
What land? Chessboard land, you knave.
I see. And is Chessboard Land part of the land of the Green Isles?
It is the home of the Red and White Queens, rulers of the Isle of Wonder, fairest of the islands that owe loyalty to the king of the land of the Green Isles. But perhaps not for long.
What do you mean?
What is the purpose of unity with the great king and queen dead? The princess is worth serving, but the feud with the other isles is strong.
The scarf is made of red silk. Those tomatoes are not quite ripe yet, and Alexander shouldn't pull them off the vine. Alexander gets closer to the sour grapes.
Oh, excuse me. Greetings, ladies. How charming you look today. Greetings, ladies. How charming you look today.
The wallflowers are too shy to talk to Alexander. Is that lettuce growing in the garden? It looks a little chilled.
Excuse me, lettuce.
The lettuce just gives Alexander the cold shoulder. A patch of iceberg lettuce grows in the garden. Alexander picks a head of iceberg lettuce.
Ye gads! Is that cold?
Hey, what do you think you're doing there? Get your hands off me! Hey!
Alexander picks up rotten tomato and puts him away. One never knows when one will need a rotten tomato. Alexander doesn't want to pick the baby's tears. They may not be done growing.
Hello. Aren't you a bunch of fine-looking young plants?
Goo-goo gaga!
Apparently, the baby's tears haven't learned to talk yet.
Hello. Aren't you a bunch of fine-looking young plants?
Goo-goo gaga!
Apparently, the baby's tears haven't learned to talk yet. Why would Alexander want to throw that in the swamp? Why would Alexander want to throw that in the swamp? Why would Alexander want to throw Why would Alexander want to Why would Why would Alexander want to Why would Alexander Why would Alexander... The mucky swamp is... Yuck. Alexander doesn't want to put his bare hands in that oozy swamp. Alexander drinks the milk and discards the bottle. Yum. Alexander takes a bottle of milk from the milkweed bush. Apparently, why would Alexander want to throw that in the swamp? Why would Alexander... The mucky swamp is no place for extensive hands-on exploration. The mucky swamp... Yuck. Alexander doesn't want to put his bare hands in that oozy swamp. Why would Alexander want to throw that in the swamp? Why would Alex... The swampy bog sinks beneath Alexander's weight. He feels himself being sucked slowly but firmly down into the muck. As the marshy water fills Alexander's mouth. He thinks that although he'd always wanted to try a mud bath, this is hardly what he had in mind.
Tickets out. Next.
Do you ever get that sinking feeling? Alexander approaches the snapdragons. Those unfriendly snapdragons don't want Alexander anywhere near them. Alexander is too far away from home to think about taking furniture back with him. Why would Alexander want to throw that in the swamp? Alexander sees no use for that item. Why would That bump on the log does not look particularly conversational to Alexander.
My dear tree, is it true that your bark is worse than your bite?
What would a dogwood tree do with that? What would that... Why would Alexander... There's no re... Why would Alexander sees no point in trying to talk to that stick in the swamp. Alexander sees no point in trying to talk to that stick in the swamp. Alexander can't reach the... The Isle of Wonder swamp oozes with muck, moss, and mud. A mushy swamp lies just off the path. It doesn't look like very good swimming. Yuck. Alexander doesn't want to put his bare hands in that oozy swamp. Why would Alexander want to throw that in this? Why would Alexander
Hello. Aren't...
Goo Gaga!
Alex? Alexander can't do anything with the distant foliage. Why would Alexander... Why would Alexander... Alexander pulls out his magic map. Nothing happens. Apparently, the map won't teleport its user anywhere except the other islands. It's a good thing, too. Alexander has had enough of ocean swimming lately. Alexander feels a strange pulling sensation. The water seems tranquil at the moment, but a dimpling pattern on the surface indicates a strong undertow. pond lies across the path. The water boils as if over some magical flame. This is the only page of inventory.
What are you, nuts? Don't put me in that soup bowl of a pond, you crazy human!
Alexander pulls out his magic map. Alexander feels a strange pulling sensation. Alexander picks a head of iceberg lettuce.
Ye gads! Is that cold?
There's no point. The magic. Alexander pulls out his magic map. Alexander feels a strange pulling sensation. Hoping to cool down the boiling pond, Alexander throws in a head of iceberg lettuce. The pond's water slowly stops boiling, cooled by the ice. It still looks hot, but bearable. Alexander decides to brave the steaming pond.
Ouch! Ow! Ooh, 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 ouch!
The pond is no longer boiling, but it's hardly bathwater. Alexander takes the old hunter's lamp from the tree. Alexander is carrying an old, battered hunter's lamp. The lamp is empty. As Alexander continues down the path, he gets the strange feeling that he's being watched.
Come on over here and see what I'm doing with these flowers. Never mind that stone fella on top of the gate. He won't hurt you any. He's just there to scare you. Gotcha this time. Tickets. Oh. Next.
That move was slightly erroneous. The path through the woods runs through a gated wall here. 2 stone statues stand guard on the gate's lintels. To the north, the path continues on through a hedge of roses and a dainty gazebo. A man tends to a small garden plot on the other side of the wall. A delicate gazebo made of white painted pine and overgrown with rose vines leads north into what appears from here to be a garden. A stone archer sits atop the lintel of the gate like a silent guardian. A stone archer sits atop the lintel of the gate like a silent guardian. His stone bow is tightly drawn and fitted with a single stone arrow.
Come on through, I say. I can show you a path through the forest.
There's nothing to do there. A brick lies in the grass. It must have come from the old brick wall. Alexander picks up the brick. Small speckles of sand stand out against the otherwise gray brick.
You aren't going to listen to me, are you? Well, we'll just see about that.
That's odd. The gardener just disappeared. Alexander pulls out his magic map. Alexander feels a strange pulling sensation. Alexander is standing on a rocky beach.
What do you think you're doing?
I'm sorry. I didn't realize these books had an owner. I'm in need of a rare book.
No owner? All books have owners, my good man. And this book owner, bookworm to you, wouldn't part with one of his books for anything.
Isn't there something I can do for you to pay for the book?
Let's see. Do you have an itinerant clause?
No. No clauses at all, I'm afraid.
As an exception, you always should.
Don't mind oxymoron and diphthong. They're fairly limited grammatical principles, you know. Let's see. A marsh pig that does Texas?
No. I'm afraid not.
A dangling participle?
I'm fresh out.
A purple fiddle whacker?
No, I don't think so. Sorry.
An idiosyncrasy, perhaps?
Afraid not.
Ha! Then what good are you?
Alexander is standing in a delectable garden. Nestled in the bright green grass are... Alexander is standing in a delectable garden. Nestled in the bright green grass are colorful plants growing in orderly clusters. Some of their curious faces peer up at Alexander from the sides of the path. The garden ends at a speckled gate. A pretty stone... Alexander doesn't want to pick the baby's tears. They may not be done growing. Alexander doesn't want to pick the baby's tears. They may not be done growing. Alexander doesn't want to pick the baby's tears. They may not be done growing. Yuck. Alexander doesn't want to put his bare hands in that oozy swamp. Why would Alexander... Alexander pulls out his magic map. Alexander feels a strange pulling sensation. There's an odd little creature dangling from that tree branch. Alexander can't reach the little creature on the tree branch. It will have to come down on its own. Perhaps Alexander ought to find out more about the odd-looking creature before offering it anything. Perhaps Alexander ought to find out more about the odd-looking creature before offering it anything. There's an odd little creature dangling from that tree branch. Perhaps Alexander ought to find out more about the odd-looking creature before offering it anything. Alexander winds the mechanical nightingale and listens to its sweet, sunny tune. Alexander opens the bargain book and reads a paragraph at random.
2 dulcimers raised to the degree of...
Phew. Perhaps Alexander ought to find out more about the odd-looking creature before offering it anything. Perhaps Alexander ought to find out more about the odd-looking creature before offering it anything. Perhaps Alexander... there's an odd little creature dangling from that tree branch.